This is Talkback 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309.
This is Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM. KGVO, Missoula's news and weather station.
Hey, welcome everybody. It is the Wednesday, October 9th edition of Talkback. Talkback this morning is brought to you by Phillips Janitorial with residential and commercial cleaning. No job too big or small for them. Your satisfaction guaranteed, by the way. Call 406-260-6617 for Phillips Janitorial. 123 Seamless Gutters is your family-owned and operated business. Now, there's probably a lot of leaves in your gutters right now, so get them cleaned out before winter. Give them a call today, 406-240-2669. They're protecting the foundation of your future. Y West Storage is out at the Y on Two Smokes Way. Give them a call for pricing and availability at 406-510-0590. At Y West, they're making room for you. And Harrington Surgical Supply, their appointments are preferred for mastectomy fittings, and custom compressions, but walk-ins are always welcome.
The views and opinions expressed on Talkback are not those of the staff, management, or advertisers.
Well, we are going to have a live program today, ladies and gentlemen. We've had some technical difficulties, but that's okay. We're gonna go through because our friend Walt Kero is joining us here in the studio. Hey, Walt, how you doing?
Oh, better than I deserve, and glad to be here.
And our producer, Nick Christensen, is going to tell us how we've had some phone problems. So how are we going to handle this, Nick?
Yeah, we're going to try to just encourage you guys to use the app, hit the message us button if you have a question for Walt. If you want to call and see if maybe there's a connection, we can try it. But the phones are very mumbled and it's hard to hear on both ends. So, yeah, if you have a question for Walt, I encourage you, download our app if you haven't already. This is not some big conspiracy to get you to download the app, because I know we've gotten calls on that before. They're like, you're just trying to... No. We would much prefer to have you talk to Walt over the phone, but no, we're... download the app, hit the message us button, and you can talk to Walt. Looks like someone's going to try to call now. We'll see. But again, we're assuming our phone lines are still down because they were 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. Well, we'll give it a shot, see how it sounds. Anyway, but so Walt, you always bring your stack of stuff with you.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we did. And, boy, time is of the essence. Today is the 9th of October. Uh-huh. And everybody's got if you haven't filed your personal income tax returns, or if you have a trust that hasn't filed, you have until next Tuesday to get that return filed. Otherwise, you'll get hit with the late filing penalties and all kinds of other nasty things. So it behooves you to get, there's no more time extension. Next Tuesday's drop dead. If you,
okay, all right,
it's a deadline of deadlines, and and what we do for a living, it's always we're always dealing with deadlines, and it's stressful. But over the years, you figure out who are the likely candidates, who are the procrastinators, and we just tell them, hey, you don't get it to us by this date,
right? We
can't guarantee we'll have it done for you by the drop dead date. So anyway, you have to live with that, and sometimes those penalties are ugly.
Yeah. Now this particular deadline is not your personal income taxes, right? It's about something else, because that's
it's personal.
April 15th?
It's the 6 months after.
Yeah,
April 15th.
Gotcha.
Nowadays, it used to be you'd get 2 extension forms,
gotcha.
But now about 10, 15, 20 years ago, they said, let's quit messing with 2 extension forms. We will make the 6-month extension automatic.
Wow.
And so both for partnerships, S corporations, trusts, personal, all that stuff, you can get an automatic extension for 6 months. And so, but by statute, the way the tax law is written, you can't go beyond that without incurring late filing penalties.
Now, the folks who missed the April 15th deadline, do they have to apply for this then, or do they just have that much time?
You apply for the extension, but it's given, if you apply for it, it's automatically given.
All right.
So, the big thing is just doing it.
Right.
And You know, the penalties for late filing is 25% of the tax if you don't get the return in and pay the tax, but within
ouch,
right away.
Yeah,
and so Anyway, we got a hard break.
We have a hard break coming up here, and so here's how we're doing this. As Nick so eloquently said just a minute ago, our phone lines are the foobarred. Is that the word? I don't know, but something has happened to our phone lines.
That's a military term.
And so basically, it sounds kind of like this, and so it's what we call in the business not airable. All right. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing is we're asking you to use the KGVO app, which, by the way, everyone should have it because you can, as you know, you've listened to Talkback and you've participated in Talkback via the app over the last several years. So just download the app. It's free. Go to the App Store, boop, 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 a couple of buttons pushed, and it'll be on your phone. And if you have a question for Walt Kero, give us a call. I'm sorry. Just go to the app and type out the question in the Message Us button and pass that along, and we'll send you those messages.
Yeah, and you don't have to wait for the next caller to be done. You can just send it.
Yeah, first come, first serve that way.
You bet. Well, let's fill up the app. Let's use it for the purpose for which it was created, and that is to get messages to us and to our guests. So we're going to come right back after this quick time out, hopefully, and get some app messages for Walt. We'll be back right after this.
Call 123 Seamless.
All right, here we go. The KGVO app is up and running, and if you have a question for Walt Kero, just to get on the KGVO app, hit the Message Us button, just type in your message, and it'll shoot it over to Nick, and we will be happy to share that with our friend Walt Kero. So, all right, but you do until those messages start coming in. It's a little new, so we're giving it a chance to work through. So just give it a shot. It's right there on your phone. If it's not, you can be downloaded just like that from the App Store. Okay, so here we go. What kind of things do you want to talk with us about today?
Well, as just a follow-up to what I was saying on the filing deadline of next Tuesday.
Okay.
In order for people to comply with that, here's what you need to do. For extension filers, you need to gather all your tax information before filing. And we've discussed this before, but Social Security numbers of everyone on the return, bank account and routing numbers if you have refunds you want direct deposited, all your W-2s, all your 1099s from banks and other agencies, interest received, and then the Form 1095 for health insurance from the marketplace. Make sure you have all that before you even start because it'll save you a lot of time.
Right.
That's our big time factor.
And I will say, having worked with Walt for many years, it is very important that you keep all these documents in one place, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a pretty place or a well organized place, but instead of running up and down to the attic and the basement and the garage and whatever, did I leave that in the glove compartment?
Or the glove compartment.
So it really is nice if you can just take a few minutes and say, okay, this is the box where all the tax stuff goes.
Yeah, or a manila folder or a plastic bag. I see all kinds of stuff.
Edna's hat box, or whatever. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, nowadays, it's just extremely important, and income tax is probably the worst place to procrastinate because, in my experience, the tax laws and the IRS and the state of Montana will penalize you more for not filing than they will for not paying. So, in other words, they punish you more for not giving them the information they
just
want.
Don't like to be ignored.
Right.
Their feelings get hurt.
Well, yeah, and rightfully so. It's called the law.
Yeah.
Now, there are some people out there who argue with that it's the law, but that whole issue has been beat up by the Supreme Court so many times, and if you wanna fight that monster, be my guest, but I don't recommend it.
Yeah, it's like what's that old expression back in the 30s? You can't fight City Hall, right? Well, you think City Hall is bad? Just try fighting with the three-lettered monster, right? The IRS, and it's one of those deals where I have received letters from the IRS, right? Mm-hmm. And let me put it this way: they very rarely send a birthday card. Or well-wishing, here's wishing you, hoping you feel better soon from your illness.
Yep.
Usually the IRS saying, hey, you forgot to, or you didn't, or you are in violation of, and heaven help you if you ignore that letter, right?
Yeah. I right, wrong, or indifferent, I label all that mail from the IRS computer hate mail. And it basically boils down to this: we hate you because you either haven't filed or you haven't paid us. So, but we'll beat up on you harder if you don't communicate.
It's like the IRS is saying, you're making me work here. I don't like that, so we're going to come down on you like a ton of bricks. So.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting because the whole U.S. income tax system is based upon, quote unquote, the honor system.
Right.
And that honor system is such that it's upon you to be honorable and prepare your tax return and file it under penalties of perjury. And so even though it's an honor system, it's still a law that you file. So it's a unique system, but it's been in place for, 100 years plus. So anyway, one new thing that's come up is...
Okay, here we go.
The IRS has extended relief to farmers and ranchers impacted by the drought.
Right.
In 41 states and other regions. In Montana, they've specified counties.
Okay.
And for the most part, it'll apply to counties around here. It's just go Missoula, Ravalli, Beaverhead County, Deer Lodge, Flathead, Granite, Lewis and Clark, Mineral, Powell, and Ravalli. I already said Ravalli. Right. So those counties are part of that disaster declaration. Now, income tax-wise, what does that do? It allows farmers and ranchers to sell their herd or sell cattle from their herd and not pay tax if they replace that herd within 4 years or replace those cattle that were sold due to drought. And so, it's a worthwhile endeavor.
Well,
because
obviously somebody in Congress was a farmer and a rancher and was able to say, hey, hold on, you don't understand how these folks live,
Yeah.
And what goes on in the business of agriculture. It isn't like you get a regular steady paycheck, right? Mm-hmm. Your livestock is your life, your
That's
livelihood,
right.
and if something's happening and they're not producing or whatever, then some help needs to come their way.
You bet, yeah. And so when it's dry and you got to sell your herd because you can't get feed, you got to sell them. So it's kind of a beyond your control.
Okay, we're at another break now. I just want to remind you once again, our phones are not operating, but we do have an app question when we come back. That's what it's all about. If you have the KGVO app, use it. You hit that message us button, send it. Nick will grab it. We'll put it up on our screen, and Nick and of course Walt Kero will deal with it when we come back. Mm-hmm. So we're going to come right back after this quick time out. Use the KGVO app and get in touch with Walt Kero. Here we go. Stand by.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Thinking about retirement? Make sure a My Social Security account is a part of your plan. A My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal earnings history and benefit status. You can find out if you're eligible to receive benefits, compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates, view spousal benefit estimates, and more. Plan for your future. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Okay, you guys are doing great. Thank you so much for using the KGVO app. Nick has a couple of messages to pass along to Walt. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, first one from Kitty. She said, if an adult child moves back home, what is the deduction for taxes?
Okay, if an adult child moves back home, depending upon facts and circumstances, you may be able to claim that adult child as a dependent. But if that adult child has any significant amount of income, then you won't be able to get that benefit of a dependent. And the benefits have changed over the years because you used to be able to get an exemption deduction, and that's been incorporated into the standard deduction. If they qualify as a qualified dependent for head of household status, then that's a benefit as well. Usually the thing that prevents any benefit from an adult child moving is the income. If their income's above $5,000-$6,000, then it gets very difficult to be able to get those benefits from that dependent. And talk about a crazy law. When it comes to dependents, it depends upon the facts and circumstances. So if the dependent is a child under the age of 17, then you get all kinds of benefits, like
right.
Child credits and additional child credits and child care credits. All that comes into play.
Even if they're making their own income?
Oh yeah. But usually those under the age of 17, they don't. There's very few years where they'll have that ability to make income. But anyway.
Okay, the other question was from Sandy. She said, why do we have to do our taxes when the IRS has the information to tell us if we're doing it wrong? Why can't they do our taxes and we double check their answers?
I love that.
Yeah.
The shoe is on the other foot, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay. Well, to Sandy, I understand your opinion and feeling, but for my first response, it's the law. Second of all, as I mentioned before, it's an honor system. And back in my college days at the fraternity, we had a pegboard. And the pegboard was for the bar, and it was an honor system. So if you took a beer, you moved your peg, your little marker, one peg. We were using golf tees, in the pegboard. So that's called an honor system. So our income tax is the same way. You report what you've done, and you go from there. But nowadays, as Sandy was saying, we got all these 1099s and all that stuff. Well, you still have to sign that the rest of the return, besides all that information the government gets, is true and accurate under penalties of perjury. There are hundreds of thousands of tax returns out there with rentals and Schedule C businesses like Peter's, and the income may be transported or communicated to the IRS, but not always. And so you have lots of income and lots of deductions that they don't have any control over. So sorry, Sandy, we're stuck.
And besides, they send out the forms, and because it's your business, it's your life or whatever, and you're living it, right?
Yep.
So you should have possession of everything that the IRS needs to be able to successfully get your taxes completed.
Right, yeah. Now, if you go to some European countries, and, I've been to Finland, Sweden, and Norway, and I know that in Finland, the government calculates your taxes based upon what the information they have. And so if you get a refund...
Trust me.
Trust me.
I'm from the government, and I'm here to help.
Yeah, you're at the mercy of the bureaucrat, and Lord God Almighty, you don't don't want to make that bureaucrat mad. So usually you're not even involved with the process. But the reason I'm a little bit hesitant to promote such an idea, at least in the U.S., is, are you going to let the fox guard the hen house? That's exactly what's going on here. When the government calculates your taxes and processes your return. Now, to a limited extent, and Sandy brings us up, and I just bounced into it just because of thinking about the question, is as if you don't file. And the IRS gets a bunch of W-2s and 1099s and whatnot.
Right.
After so many years, they will file, the computer, will file a return for you. And that's called a substitute for return. And that's been held through the courts to stand up. So if you owe money on that substitute for return form, you got to pay. And you're subject to penalties and everything else. Now, you can go and file an original return to correct that. And so you go from there.
All right. Now, but will there be penalties for the fact that you didn't file?
If you owe money,
right.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And it gets ugly.
Okay. So we're going to come right back. Now, again, we're having problems with our phones, and so we're using the KGVO app. That's really why we have the app, is to not only to listen to KGVO anywhere in the world, but also the Message Us button is very important, because if you need to get a message to us, and in this specific case for Walt Kero for the show today, you just get on the app and the Message Us and type in whatever it is you'd like Walt to address, and he will be more than happy to do that. And we're going to do that, and hopefully the phones will be fixed soon. But until then, we do have an avenue for you to use. Of course, the app is absolutely free, costs you nothing. Just go to the App Store, download it, take just a few seconds, and get it all set up, and send us your question for Walt Kero. Hopefully, we'll get more of those when we come back right after this timeout.
Dennis Bragg with the updated Town Square weather forecast, starting Wednesday again with chilly temperatures and some fire smoke, but then clearing off to mostly sunny skies and highs into the mid-70s. Clouds will increase Wednesday night through Thursday, and it will be cooler with highs in the mid-60s, but overnight lows slightly warmer as well in the upper 30s and mid-40s. Partly sunny on Friday, then a few clouds Friday night before sunshine returns for the whole weekend, with highs getting back into the 70s.
All right, thank you, Dennis. And here we are. We're doing Talk Back with Walt Kero, a resident CPA from Kero, Byington and Associates. And we're going to try to get Jeff's call on and do a little experiment to see just how it sounds on the air. Jeff, go ahead, please.
Hey, am I coming through?
Yes. It's
sort of.
It's a little bumpy, but we can understand you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll keep it brief. Yeah, regarding Sandy's comment, when I filed for the income tax rebate, I found out that I had my 2022, I believe, return had not made it through, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but it ended up that I had to file a paper return, and the IRS, some nameless, faceless bureaucrat, misentered a code for the rebate. So I was disapproved a $171 rebate, and because of that, I had accrued almost $800 in penalties. So I finally talked to a person in Helena, at their office in Helena, and got it resolved, but I had to walk through my paper return in order to get the IRS to understand what had happened. So I don't know that I want the IRS doing that, because I would not have any recourse to that information, and they would be in the driver's seat. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. And that's why I'm hesitant to promote even the thought of having the government do our taxes. And the fox guard and the hen house, and your example is a perfect description of what can happen. And what happened more than likely happened is the Montana state return that you file electronically first goes to the IRS has a file attachment, and the IRS is supposed to transmit those file attachments once they get them to the various states. It's not just Montana, it's all the states. And some way, somehow, that didn't happen and got corrupted by the nameless, faceless bureaucrat.
Well, what had happened was I had filed it electronically, but then because of a problem I won't go into, it involves a family member, it got rejected, but we never knew it was rejected. So that's when I found out I had to file a paper return in last August, and the ball had already gotten in motion. But you said something, Walt, I'd like you to clarify, because we have a granddaughter that lives with us that we claim as a dependent, and she'll turn 17 next year. So and she's special needs to boot. So what are some of the things that I need to watch out for as we progress with her from age 17 on up while she still lives with us?
The break point is 17, where you get the benefits of the child credits and this and that and the other thing. The dependency exemption back in the old days was based upon a 5-part test, and the granddaughter works because of the relationship factor. And obviously, you're providing more than half her support. She's a full-time student and all that stuff. She should be good. But once she reaches over 17, once she gets past that, then I have to go look. And I just put in the names and dates of birth, and my software calculates that. And those rules change about every other year. So, but I think you lose the tax credit benefits and some of the other benefits of the dependent after they get older than 17.
Okay, so it's older than 17. So at 17, I can still claim her, but 18 and up is the break point?
Oh, I'll have to check. I can't remember right off the top of my head. I don't, like I said, I just throw the dates of birth into my software, and the software will calculate the benefits of that dependent or not.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Oh, yeah, good luck.
Jeff, thanks for the call. Now, that was tolerable. I mean, it worked. Mm-hmm. So, if you want to use the app, great. If you want to try to give us a call, what do you think, Nick? Should we?
Only if when I screen it sounds as good as Jeff's did, because I had a call earlier. It did not sound good. So, again, I would encourage everyone to please use the app. If you can't use the app and want to try the phone, we can try it, but there's no guarantee I will be able to let you go through.
And of course, our engineers are working on this. I'm not sure. It's a problem that it's not within this building. Put it that way. I think it probably. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But they're working on it, and because it's a vital part of everything that we do here, is being on the phone. So we're let's put it this way: we're working on it. So all right,
it's not just a phone issue. Trust me.
Oh, okay.
It's a much bigger issue that's affecting all of our stations. Our phones are part of it, but they are working diligently on it, and that's really all anyone needs to know.
Good to know. All right, we're going to come right back. 721-1290. Oh, sorry. There you go. See, that's so much a part of my shtick. Mm-hmm. Use the KGVO app, and we have someone else on the app with a question or a comment. We're going to come right back with that, as Nick will share that with us. And we hope that you will download the app and use it until we get our phones fixed. And then you'll have it forever. So we'll be right back after this.
Hi, I'm Carson Kressley. Of all the resources in the world, kindness is the most precious. For more than 140 years, American Humane has been working to protect animals in disasters, on farms, on the silver screen, and in zoos and aquariums caring for the world's vanishing creatures. You can help too by making humane choices every day. Visit AmericanHumane.org for simple ways to build a more caring and compassionate world for all of us.
Okay, we're back on Talk Back, and we're doing things a little bit differently with the technical difficulties with the phones. But we do have a couple of we have an app question, and one you had a chance to speak with a gentleman, Nick, that had a question for Walt.
Yeah, we'll do the app question first. Larry said, "I'm making additional contributions to our Montana Medical Savings account." He said, "Is this a credit on my federal taxes?" I'm also making contributions from my IRAs. What impact will that have on my taxes, and what supporting documents do I need?
Okay. Assuming you have a valid Montana medical savings account, you're good to go. In fact, it was going to be item number 6 on my stack of stuff.
All right.
And in the stack of stuff, the Montana legislature extended the Montana medical savings account. It was due to expire in this year, before January 1st of 2024, but they extended it. And so for 2024, you can contribute and deduct up to $4,500 into that Montana medical savings account. The Montana medical savings account is much more liberal than the federal, because on the federal health savings accounts, if you're on Medicare, you can't participate in the HSA. In other words, you can't contribute. If you have money from prior periods where you could, you can spend that, but you can't make future contributions to it. So the Montana Medical Savings Account contribution is figured separately, and there's no federal benefit involved if you don't qualify. But the thing is if you wanted to get a federal deduction, you should just start up and file and create a health savings account at the federal level, because Montana will honor those amounts. Anyway, that being said, how does that, the health Montana medical savings accounts and health savings accounts are great things to use, because you can build up equity in them, and as long as you spend it on medical purposes at any point in the future, then it's not income to you, and you got a deduction. So anyway.
Now, at what point, if you've got money in your medical savings account and you pass away, what happens then?
Oh, good question. I don't know the answer right off the top of my head, but usually if a spouse is involved, then there's no big problem.
Right.
But if it's a non-spouse that's the beneficiary of that, I don't know.
Is that something I can put in my will?
You could put it in your will, but that's not really going to dictate tax-wise what's going to happen to that money.
Right.
Is that going to be what we call income in respect of a decedent or not? I just don't know the answer off the top of my head.
Okay, all right. So, Nick, what else do you have to share with us today?
Yeah, we got a caller also named Larry. He said he took out $250,000 from an IRA. He's retired, 62 years old, and bought a house in Mexico. He said this year he'll have to pay taxes on the $250K he took out. His total income would be around $300,000. He wants to know if there's any deductions he's entitled to on the first of the year.
Oh, okay. It's kind of hard with those facts and circumstances. He would be able to, if he had used part of that IRA withdrawal for making charitable contribution, you could do that. But if he's of retirement age and assuming he's more than 59 and a half, he won't be subject to the early withdrawal penalty. And
he's 62. He's
62?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's just going to be stuck with the tax on that. And in terms of tax planning, there isn't a lot you can do with those. It depends upon if he's got capital gains or not, and what his itemized deductions are. If he's not, obviously, if he's 62, he's not on Medicare, so he could put a few bucks into a health savings account if he's got a job, if he's got earned income at the same time. But if he's just totally in retirement mode, that's not going to work. So we need to know a lot more about him,
right,
before we can answer some of the tax planning items.
And besides, it's important for us to emphasize the fact that when Walt is here, the advice he gives is pretty much general. I mean, based upon the question that is asked, he draws from his over 50 years of experience. So he can narrow it down pretty good, but it's not something you should go ahead and take to the bank.
Yeah, and my experience with tax returns is almost every return is unique in some aspect.
Right.
And so, you can take a simple return and then all of a sudden, like a fellow that came in and ended up being a Walmart millionaire, and I was able to save him quite a bit of tax because of his Walmart stock in his 401k. So it worked out. It worked out very well. There's a special device for situations like that. So anyway,
and that's really, if you don't mind me, promoting your profession. That's why it's important to have an accountant doing your taxes. Someone who knows the law and knows especially all the new, fresh information that's coming out almost on a daily basis.
Oh yeah, and the law is way too complicated. It could be made simpler, but there's too much social engineering going on. Why
spoil the fun
from the politicians? So I expect it only to get worse, more complicated.
Yeah. So what else do we have, Nick?
Real brief one from Kitty. She said, how can we protect ourselves from the unrealized taxes?
Oh, pray and hope the election goes to the Trumpster, because the Democrats, and especially Kamala, whatever, Harris, wants to promote the idea of taxing unrealized gains, or what we call phantom income. And the administration of such a monster is just unbelievable. And you think the government's big now? Just wait till they start taxing the gain on your house, Peter, because you bought the house way, way, way back, and you haven't sold it yet, but it's worth much, much more. They want to tax it.
Built my house in 1991.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 33 years ago?
44 years ago.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, you're right. 33, correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you take that appreciation, what you built it for and what it's worth now, and then pay the unrealized capital gains on that, you won't be a happy camper. So,
all right. And with that, we're up against another break. Hey, we would love to have your questions for Walt. If you can, please use the KGVO app. If you, for some reason, can't download it or whatever, or working without being online, if you call 721-1290, Nick will be happy to take your message, but we'd much rather have you use the app. Just hit the Message Us button, send it on over, and we'll pass that along to Walt Kero, who's going to be with us till 10 o'clock this morning. So we're going to come right back with more of Talk Back with Walt after this. Hey, welcome back to Talk Back, and I'm Peter Christian, Nick Christensen, producing Talk Back this morning. Our guest here in the studio is Walt Kero, and as we had mentioned before, in case you just may have joined us, we were having some phone issues. The phone is not sounding good, but at least we're able to receive calls, and so we're going to try to get Steve's call on right now. Steve, good morning. Let's see if we can get you hooked up with Walt and get your question answered, please.
Hi, Steve.
Yeah, I've got a question. Hey, Walt, longtime fan of yours. I think you do a great job. And I really appreciate Peter and Nick for having you on so regularly. Yeah, it's important you expose what you do, even in the form of tax advice, and deeply appreciate it. Quick question for you. I donated a little bit of money to the No Camp Missoula organization, and I was just wondering, is that tax deductible, and what do I need to do to deduct that from my taxes, if you knew or not? It's a local organization trying to change the camping ordinances in the parks. And then second question for Peter, and Peter, I apologize if I missed the show on this, but when are you guys going to have the folks from No Camp Missoula on to talk about what they're doing to change the urban camping laws that have been put in place by Mayor Davis and the council. Thank you very much. I'll take the answer offline.
Thanks for the call. So that we haven't had a chance to do that.
We are working on.
We're working on it. All right, there you go. Okay, so we have
October is a very, very busy month for us with candidates. So.
Absolutely. All right. So we have another app question, right?
Oh, I got to answer.
You got to answer the question. I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
That's okay. Yeah. It's the heat of the battle.
Yes.
Anyway, Steve, the thing with No Camp Missoula and making a contribution to it is the only type of contribution that's deductible. Has a charitable deduction is one to a 501c3. Because No Camp Missoula is just newly formed, whoever formed it, if they filed No Camp Missoula has a educational function, it could probably qualify, but that's a whole can of worms. If it doesn't have 501c3 status, then you can't deduct contributions to it. And when we get into these types of organizations, it gets really nitpicky,
right.
Scary.
And even though we are in a political season right now, right? Mm-hmm. Not every organization is going to have the proper paperwork to be able to be tax deductible, right?
That's right. And if you're George Soros and you don't really care because you got so much money, you don't know what to do with it. He funds a lot of political things, but those aren't charitable deductions. They're not deductible unless they're tied to. If their primary focus, which is almost everything the organization does, is education related. So No Camp Missoula could fit that description as well, has an education function, but if it's doing lobbying or trying to promote legislation of one form or another, city or county or statewide, then it's not going to qualify.
Let's try to get another call in. If we can, I believe it is Russell who's waiting. Russell, we got about 3 minutes, sir. What's on your mind?
Okay, I have a problem with my 2023 taxes. I filed the wrong fair market value on that Form 8606, which is a non-deductibles IRA. Anyhow, I put the wrong fair market value in there. I accidentally inflated it by a fair amount. Mm-hmm. Do I file an amended return to correct that, or what?
If there's a change in the tax, and I suspect there will be, the 8606 form generally declares how much of your contribution is deductible and how much isn't, and it also establishes what we call basis for non-deductible IRAs. So it's an important form, and you got to keep it going. So when you say you reported too high a value for the market value,
yes.
I'm not sure that's going to have an impact. And the only way I would be able to tell you one way or the other is I would have you return in my system, and then I make a copy of that, and then I plug in the correct value, and then I hit the calculation button, and whatever comes out, then I can tell you if it's if an amended return is needed. If there's no tax change, then I wouldn't even worry about it. But I couldn't tell you one way or the other right now.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. One other quick question about added solar panels to my roof this year.
Yeah.
I know I get a federal 30% back, but the state doesn't really give much, does it?
No, they used to, but that's all gone away. A few years ago, they got rid of all. Montana had a plethora, a bushel basket of tax credits. And powers that be, including the CPA Society, felt that tax credits, especially ones that weren't used on a volume basis, were kind of expensive to maintain, so they got rid of them. And in fact, I'm going to be speaking later about the Montana tax changes for 2024 because there are major changes, not so much in the bottom line tax, but in how you calculate it.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll listen
Russell.
to that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, and good luck on that.
Thanks for your help.
All right, there we go. So we have about a minute left before we take our hard break. And in case you're just joining us, you probably noticed that the phone call sounded a little bit fuzzy. We're doing the best we can with some technical difficulties here, but we would really appreciate it if you could use the KGVO app because Nick is able to take that from the Message Us button on the app and deliver your question to Walt and get it answered quickly. We'll try to get phone calls on as we can. They don't sound very good, but we will do the best we can to get your questions answered because that is why Walt is here. So, you use the KGVO app. You can download it free from the App Store and hit the Message Us button. We'll pass that along. And our regular number is 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309. So stay with us. Another hour of Talkback is on the way. Walt will be with us until 10 o'clock. Sharing his expertise in the world of taxes. So we hope you'll take advantage of getting in touch with us. We'll be back.
This is Talkback, 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309.
This is Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM. KGVO, Missoula's news and weather station.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is hour number 2 of Talkback for this Wednesday, October the 9th. Talkback this morning brought to you by Harrington Surgical Supply. You feel confident in Harrington Surgical Supply's discreet and knowledgeable guidance on a multitude of products and medical supplies. Also brought to you by 123 Seamless Gutters, family owned and operated. If you need your gutters repaired or cleaned or even some gutter guards added, give them a call, 406-240-2669. They're protecting the foundation of your future. Also brought to you by Y West Storage out of the Y on Two Smokes Way. If you need some stuff stored, here, give them a call, 406-510-0590. At Y West, they're making room for you. And, of course, Phillips Janitorial offers both cleaning for your home and your business. No job too big or small for them. Your satisfaction guaranteed by calling 406-260-6617.
The views and opinions expressed on Talkback are not those of the staff, management, or advertisers.
Okay, we are back on Talkback, and in case you're just joining us, the phone system, we're having trouble with the phone system. We still can take calls, but we would much rather have to use the KGVO app because that way you can send your message, and Nick will pass it along to Walt. So anyway, we do have some app questions, Nick.
We have an app comment. Don said, I don't agree with an unrealized cap gains tax, but why not mention it's aimed at people worth $100 million or more rather than telling biased half-truths?
Well, the whole thing is the mantra these days is, let's make people pay their fair share. Well, the bottom 47% of income earners pay no federal income tax. So 53% of us taxpayers out there are paying the full burden. And the easiest way to describe our current tax system, federal-wise, is that it has progressivity built into the system. In fact, that progressivity is so much, it's like it's on steroids. Because you can take like the top 1% or top 10% of taxpayer earners are paying a majority of the tax bill. So the question becomes, well, how much is enough? And
how much is fair?
Yeah.
And fair is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Pretty much. That's just like fair and pornography and, all those things. It's in the eye of the beholder.
I don't want to see it, right? Yeah.
For political expediency, when you hear people whining about, let's make people pay their fair share, they don't say what's a fair share. And they never will because they don't have a clue. And what's a fair share? Well, I would never propose that any kind of tax system, federal, state, local, ever go more than 50% of your income, because then you take away any incentive for doing better. Now, that's just my personal opinion. But that being said, okay, you can take Warren Buffett, and he makes millions and millions and billions of dollars. And most of that is capital gain. And a lot of that capital gain is taxed at capital gain rates. And let's say the maximum capital gain rate is 23.8%. But if that was all ordinary income, then you would say, oh, okay, well, they can get taxed at 37%. So, yes, the high-income individuals, if they have capital gains, they get a break. But low-income people or taxpayers under $400,000, they get that same kind of break on capital gains. So, is there a perfect system? No. And who is it? Who is it like a Kamala Harris or Bernie Sanders saying, oh, these millionaires aren't paying their fair share and all of that stuff. And they want to tax the snot out of corporations. And so there's a huge problem with that. And even though it's one of those good intentions to make people with a lot of assets pay more, well, what is the effect of that? And I think I'm going to be talking about that later, but you just need to know that the more you raise corporate taxes, you're kind of hurting a whole bunch of people that you hadn't ought to hurt.
Well, if you have, and the reason Walt is here, he's here to answer your personal tax questions. If you have a small business, if something has happened in your life, in your family, and your tax situation has changed, and you don't know exactly what to do or what to file or where to go, all you have to do is use the KGVO app. Type in your message in the Message Us button, shoot it over to Nick. We'll pass that along to Walt, and we do have some app comments. But go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, and just an addendum to what I just said. There is a thing called the alternative minimum tax, and so for those fat cats and those high-income people and those large corporations, they are subject to what we call the alternative minimum tax. Now, does that catch everything? No, but it does make for more tax from the alleged wealthy. So we have two tax systems out there, the regular income tax for most everybody, but for the high income people, they're already subject to an additional tax. So,
all right,
anyway.
There you go. So, all right, and if you don't have the app and you can't download it, you can call 721-1290. We'll try to either dictate your message, or if the signal is clear enough, we'll try to get you on. We're doing the best we can to get everybody served here with the great advice that Walt is here to share. So we're going to come right back. Again, the number 721-1290, or use the KGVO app. Please use the app. Download it free from the App Store, and we'll get your question answered as quickly as we can. Hey, welcome back to Talk Back. And again, we are, in case you may have just joined us, we're talking with Walt Kero, our resident CPA from Kero, Byington and Associates. And ordinarily, the way it would work, we just have you call 721-1290 and put you on and talk with Walt. But if you just joined us, you don't know, we're having some problems with our phone systems. It is legible, but it's not exactly the kind of quality we want to have. So we would prefer if you would use the KGVO app. Just download it, and you can. We'll try to get you on as quickly as we can. So I want to go ahead and put this person in on hold here. And so anyway, when Nick gets back, we'll see if we can get this individual on the line. But anyway, you use the KGVO app and type in your message, shoot it over to us, and we'll make sure that Walt gets that message just as quickly as we possibly can.
Yeah, and besides, the app is free.
Anyway, all right. I believe that we have Catherine. Oh, Catherine. Okay, Catherine's on the line. Hey, good morning, Catherine. You're on Talkback. Go ahead, please, ma'am.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Walt. I was wondering if you wanted to maybe talk a little bit about the cost of billionaire philanthropy to taxpayers, because that's one way that billionaires manage to avoid taxes, because they then use charity to avoid paying any sort of taxes, and then they amplify their political voice. Right?
Oh, yeah, some do. To the extent you can do it, because you have to be, when you're dealing with billions of dollars and you're trying to get a charitable donation deduction to reduce your tax bill, you want to make darn sure that is a bona fide charity. And the IRS maintains a listing of all the qualified charities that are out there. And so first, assuming that takes place, but let's say somebody's got $1 billion of income in a given year. Well, right now you could give away up to $600 million, or 60% of that billion has a charitable donation deduction, as long as it's to a qualified charity, and, reduce your tax bill significantly for that. Where it gets interesting or intriguing is if some of those charities are really disguised political organizations. And
exactly.
Yeah, the 501c3 is the qualified charities, but you have 501c4, which is where a lot of the alleged dark money hides. But the money put into that is not a charitable deduction. And so probably the most preeminent party that's using 501c4 is George Soros. And George Soros is putting millions and billions of dollars into probably hundreds of what they call NGOs, non-government organizations, right. And they're following up with everything from bringing illegals across the border, maintaining them, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a mess. It needs to be audited, but right now there's not enough cojones in Congress to go after that.
Well, it's I'm just reading this interesting article about this whole thing. It does talk about the subsidy, maybe several hundreds of billions of dollars that are given, but the wealthier the donor, the greater the taxpayer subsidy for their donation. Example is every dollar a billionaire donates to charity, taxpayers chip in 74 cents in lost revenue. So.
Oh yeah, that's under the principle of substitution, because if a billionaire takes advantage of a charitable donation deduction, that lost revenue is made up by somebody else, and it's right.
Exactly, and it's right. It's made up by the middle class, if you will.
Yeah.
So the report also finds that wealthy donors are more likely to contribute to their own private foundations and donor-advised funds, or DAF, intermediaries that they control. And so those are able to influence policy decisions by the government for their own benefit.
Yeah, a couple of things. You mentioned private foundations. Private foundations have a different set of rules, and they can act as you're describing, but they have to distribute of the earnings that private foundation earns. They have to distribute the earnings of that to like 95% of what they earn every year. Otherwise, they pay an excise tax. And it gets pretty interesting. The donor-advised funds are a unique thing that's just come on board in the last decade or so. And it allows a wealthy donor to put money into a fund, and they get the charitable donation deduction. When they put the money into the fund, it works like an IRA. But then the fund, whether it's charitable, I mean, whether it's Schwab or Fidelity or Vanguard, those are the three primary donor advice fund holders. Once it's in their hands, then they do all the paperwork. The donor can advise where they want the money to go, but the final say is done by that intermediary company.
Right. Anyway, I just thought it'd be interesting to discuss that just a little bit, because people don't realize just how much that influences tax policy.
Yeah, it's billions and billions of dollars. Now, one thing that just came up recently is that some Republicans in the House of Representatives are considering introducing a tax bill so that some of these private foundations, like the Harvard Fund and the Yale Fund, and all those private colleges and universities, that they're going to want to tax that. Am I in favor of more tax on those folks? I think what would be better and would be more disruptive of that whole process would be to take away those foundations' charitable exempt status because they're anti-Semitic. And we just went through that. And so, obviously, when you got an institution that's promoting anti-Semitism, they're violating the law. If you're violating the law, then the charity should not be allowed to do what it's been given by the graces of the taxpayer through the legislature. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Anyway, it's different perspectives that I wanted to bring out. So, and Peter, I just sent you the link to that article I was reading.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I read every one that you send me, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you, Catherine.
Okay. You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to come right back. We are doing the best we can with our phone system the way it is. We are trying to take some calls, as you just heard. It is sounding a little funky, but we can get them on. If you don't have access to the KGVO app, we hope that you'll do that you'll download it, and that you will use it. Use the Message Us button, because that way Nick can take that and deliver it directly to Walt to get your questions answered. And that's really why he's here. So we're doing everything we can to get that message out. So we'll be right back after this.
Montana State News Network.
I'm Dennis Bragg. A former bookkeeper will spend 5 months in a federal prison and have to shell out nearly $200,000 for embezzling from a Kalispell firearms company. 58-year-old Terry Ann Bell of Columbia Falls was sentenced this week after pleading guilty to wire fraud in June. Federal prosecutors say Bell had stolen the money while working for Falcor SID for more than 3 years, with the total theft topping $150,000. They say she used the money for personal expenses, including hotels in Las Vegas, shopping, collection agencies, and streaming services. The U.S. Attorney for Montana, Jesse Laslovich, says the case of a Canadian who snuck into Montana to buy guns is part of an epidemic of gun violence, both nationally and internationally, saying gun crime knows no boundaries. 27-year-old Hapte Kozak of Kelowna, BC, was sent to prison for 18 months this week after admitting to buying 12 pistols from stores in Missoula, Kalispell, Butte, and Helena. He intended to take them back across the border where regulations make guns very profitable. Prosecutors say he used an alias and a phony Montana's driver's license with a bogus Missoula address. It seems there's no end to the post-pandemic rebound to air travel in Montana. Billings Logan Airport saw 2 consecutive months with 50,000 passengers in July and August, beating the mark from 2019. That means the airport has had 100,000 aircraft operations over the past 12 months, the first time that's happened in almost 20 years. The American Red Cross declaring a blood emergency as blood supplies and donations plummet after those 2 successive hurricanes hit the southeast. Regional Communications Director Matt Oshner says all blood types are needed.
We have a need for all blood types, but type O blood especially. O positive blood is the most transfused blood, the most common blood, and then O negative blood, that is the universal donor.
There are dozens of donation opportunities being scheduled through the end of the month. You can find a full list at redcrossblood.org. This is the Montana State News Network.
When you see the emergency lights on the side of the road, slow down and move over. It's dangerous for first responders to help motorists on the side of the road while cars are buzzing by at 80 miles per hour. In Montana, when you see emergency lights on the side of the road, you must slow down and move over, or face a fine or even jail time. It's the law. When you see someone pulled over, slow down and move over.
Sponsored by the Montana Department of Justice.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Okay, we are back. This is Talkback. Walt Kero is our guest in the studio from Kero Byington and Associates. And we have an app question, Mr. Nick.
Yeah, Joel said, I know that Montana has no inheritance tax, but does that still apply if the individual had no will and the family has to go through probate court before dividing up the estate? does it change the taxable status of the inheritance?
Well, Joel, the quick, simple answer is no. But that's based on the assumption that the deceased was a Montana resident when they died. And whether or not there's a will or a trust or whatnot, Montana laws would come into play, and there is no Montana inheritance tax. That's not true with some of our neighbors like Oregon and Washington. Anything above $1 million or so, they want a tax. So don't die as a resident in Oregon or Washington. Okay. So that being said, one of the issues that happens a lot with inheritances is a real, in the tax world, one of the ugliest terms that you run across is income in respect of a decedent. And I've mentioned that before, but what it boils down to is if the decedent had income coming to him or her, like an IRA or a profit-sharing plan or pension, whatever, that is income in respect of a decedent. So if you, as a beneficiary from an estate, inherit an IRA, then you've got to pay tax as you collect on that. And there's a whole bunch of rules with that, too.
All right. There you go.
Anyway, there we go.
We do have another app question. Nick, please go ahead.
Beck said, is Walt taking new clients? And if someone sends email to set up an appointment or ask a question, will they answer back this year? Last year, no answer was received.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes and yes. We're accepting new clients. And that's contrary to a lot of my peers out there, by the way. Right. Up in Kalispell, almost everybody is saying we're not accepting new clients. And so we're getting clients from Kalispell as well. But, yeah, and if you send us a question by email, we'll be happy to respond. Now, sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, is if I get an email from somebody who's not in my address book, it goes to my junk folder. And I just usually delete what's ever in the junk folder. So I'm just going to guess back that that's what happened last year, is you sent me a question, went to my junk folder, and I didn't even realize it was there. So here's the best way to get a hold of me is just call the office at 406-549-2288. And request an appointment, and then also put the question there to our Director of First Impressions, and she will be happy to grab that question and get it to me.
I love that title, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I love it, too. And she's good. Our new one is really good.
All right, let's, I believe Jack is on the phone. We're going to try to get him on. Jack, good morning. What's your question for Walt Kero, please?
Yeah, good morning.
Hi.
Over the last 40 years, I've acquired a number of artifacts that have accrued in value quite a bit. The problem is a number of them that I bought, I no longer have the receipts for what I paid for them. Mm-hmm. And now that I want to sell them off, I don't know how to declare that figure to the IRS. Is there any way I can fix that?
Well, how do you fix it? Well, okay. Did you pay cash for those things, or did you write checks or credit card purchases, or what?
A lot of it was cash. So.
Okay. Yeah, and the only way you'd have a receipt would be to have a receipt. But, after 5, 10, 15 years, receipts get lost. And so then, barring records, you use your best guess, because some of those artifacts, you'll know the year you purchased it, and you use your memory, because that's all you can do. And you need to do something with regards to establishing a cost, because once you sell it, you want to deduct that cost from the sale price, because you don't want to pay tax on income, because if you don't declare a cost, you end up paying tax twice on that same item. And here's how you pay tax twice on the same item. It's kind of like, here's my analogy with paying tax twice on the same item. And this is from a patent. George Scott's saying, they're in Sicily and Palermo, and he's told, hey, your leaders want you to pull back. And Patton says, there's no way I'm going back. I don't want to pay twice for the same real estate. So that concept applies here. When you sell an artifact, and if you just report the sale price as gain, even though 10, 20 years ago you paid half of X for that, you're paying tax twice because you paid tax on the income to use to buy that way back when. And so I'm never a proponent of that. And so, do your best job and get that cost. And the sooner you do it, when you buy something, you put it down in writing, the better your information will be. So that's what I would do.
Let me just clarify real quickly. Okay, say I bought something 40 years ago, and I paid $30 for it. And now it's worth $3,000. Well, if I don't have a receipt, then I tell the IRS I paid $30 for it. Are they going to accept that?
Yes. They don't have much choice. Now, they could audit you and say, well, we don't believe you paid $30 for it, but they would have to have proof. The burden of proof would be on them to counter your memory. And you're the one that paid the money out. So you're going to be the one in the best position with the best information. Now, is that going to apply in all cases? For these artifacts, I would say so. But nowadays, most businesses would, have computer records that would keep track of their cost and their purchases. But when you're a cash business, it gets to be very difficult. But again, I'll re-emphasize the concept under the penalties of perjury. And so when you sign your return, you're saying, to the best of my knowledge and information, that $30 is what I paid for that artifact. And no, I don't have any problem with that. And I don't think the IRS would either.
Okay. Well, thanks for your help.
And good luck.
Thank you for the call, sir. We're going to come right back. And we have, I believe, do we have any app questions, Nick? We okay?
Well, we have Elena.
We have Elena. We'll get Elena's call on when we come back from the break, and we will be back. We prefer if you use the KGVO app. If you have it, if it's possible, you can download it from the App Store, and we'll be happy to pass the message along to Walt with the problems we're having with our phone system. But we're trying to get as many calls in as we can as well. So we're going to come right back with more after this.
Are you looking for more in this world? Are you ready for something bigger? Then we are looking for you. The big-hearted, the bold, the messy and the gutsy, the teachers, the growers, the builders, the skilled, the sharers, the change makers. We need you. We are the Peace Corps. In more than 60 countries, we go all in and all out. We are volunteers, partners, communities, working together, living together, bringing our experience, passion, and joy to building a better world together. From tackling climate change in Mexico to keeping kids healthy in Kenya, from sustainable farming in the Philippines to education in Kosovo. We learn more, give more, share freely, and serve boldly. Are you ready to tackle the tough stuff? To go the distance to make a difference? Then we have a place where you belong. Join us at peacecorps.gov.
Hey, welcome back to Talk Back, and we are taking phone calls when we have to, but we prefer if you use the KGVO app, but that's okay. Elena is on the line. Elena, go ahead. You're on with Walt.
Good morning, Elena.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Walt. You know how emotional I get every time you come on and I hear people asking questions. It's like playing Simple Simon, but it's IRS says, can I do this? Can I do that?
Yeah.
You'll agree with me. What we're talking about, to use a corny phrase, what you're talking about is the fruit of your labor. It is yours, not the IRS. And here's a book, and I'm sure Walt and Pete and Nick, you all read it. It's not a book, it's a pamphlet. Very short pamphlet. It's called The Law, written in 1848 by Frederick Bastiat. Read it, folks, and it may change your mind and give you a different attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm going to say.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for the call. All right. Okay.
I don't know the book. The only thing I can say is I don't know how many times the U.S. Supreme Court has taken up the constitutionality of the 16th Amendment, i.e. the income tax. But for right, wrong, or indifferent, the U.S. Supreme Court's the law of the land. And until they rule differently, that's how I deal with preparing clients' tax returns. You have those penalties of perjury. Again, I defer to that. Most people don't realize what they're signing, and maybe they should. Maybe, they ought to know what that means.
Well, let's put it this way. Along with the tax return, when you send it to them for their signature, there should be a little addendum saying, by the way, if you sign this and the information within is incorrect deliberately, you could be held liable. Is that?
Yeah. And, I'm not going to disagree with Elena on the merits of what's in the book or how I feel about the income tax. But I may not like the income tax, but I feel where I'm at, I have to comply with the law. In fact, we're supposed to. We're supposed to comply with the law. And, just because we don't like a rule doesn't mean we have to ignore it. Because if you ignore it, you pay the consequences.
Right. Now, there are certain situations when you're dealing with a law that's clearly unjust, or whatever. The American Revolution, is one example of that, where they simply refused to pay the tax because they felt it was unjust, which led to a war, which led to a new country, which led to all sorts of things,
and a new constitution.
Exactly. But those instances are very rare, right? For the most part, we all try to be law-abiding citizens. We obey the traffic laws. We keep our seatbelts buckled. We, pay our taxes when we have to, and it's all part of being a structured, orderly, and safe society.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of things involved with the tax law that I disagree with. There's some I agree with, but the whole point is, if you disagree with something, get knowledgeable about it before you do anything. In other words, don't fire your arm until you know the target and you know everything about that target. So, anyway, just a little.
Well, how are we doing? Are we doing? We clear on app questions, and the phone hasn't rung, but that line is open. By the way, it's 721-1290. We'll take the call, and we're struggling through some phone problems, as you have heard. But if you can't use the app, then you are welcome to call 721-1290. Now, the stack of stuff, we haven't gotten through half of that yet.
Oh, I know. And this next topic is near and dear to my heart because the information I'm about to give comes from the Tax Foundation, which is a 501c3 in Washington, D.C., and all they do is analyze taxes.
Wow.
And they're analyzing taxes from an economic perspective, not a Democrat or liberal or Republican perspective. And so one of the things in Bernie Sanders and AOC and even Kamala Harris want to raise corporate taxes because they think the corporations are evil and they're not paying their fair share and all that. Okay. Well, I know that corporations pay taxes because they write checks and transfer money to the government. The question is what happens if you raise or lower their taxes? And when we come back, I'll get into that.
Yeah. All right. So we will be happy to take your call if you don't have access to the KGVO app. But we're taking questions for Walt Kero, our resident CPA from Kero Byington and Associates. We're going to come right back. Again, the phone number 406-721-1290. Back in just a moment.
Senator John.
Child abuse is not a bad parent problem. And the causes may be different than you think.
You see, paid family leave
That prevents child abuse. And high-quality, affordable child care
prevents child abuse, too.
Prevent Child Abuse America promotes programs and resources informed by science that help communities, parents, and kids thrive.
Because when we keep families out of crisis, we prevent child abuse.
From ever happening.
Go to preventchildabuse.org to learn more.
Let's solve child abuse before it ever happens.
Hey, welcome back to Talk Back, and we are calls are coming in, so we put them on the air. They don't sound as good as they ordinarily do, but we're doing the best we can to get the information you need from Walt Kero, our guest, and that's really the most important thing. So Walt is here in the studio with us for another 16 minutes or so, and so Nick, what's going on?
First we got a caller question that wanted to know what were the changes to LLCs when it comes to rules and regulations. He heard that there were some things going on and was hoping you could clarify.
Okay. The only new thing with LLCs, and it applies to partnerships and S corporations and small business corporations, is the FinCEN report, which stands for the FinCEN report that you need to file by December 31st is a BOI, beneficial ownership interest form. And if you don't do that, you'll be subject to penalties and Lord knows what else, prison time.
We had an entire program on that when the Chamber of Commerce was on, and it was kind of jaw-dropping when you consider what can happen if you don't comply.
Right, and we were talking about compliance a little bit ago with income tax. Right. Well, this is just as bad, if not worse, because FinCEN stands for the Financial Network of Crime Enforcement, and right. that whole area of the law, and it got its real start with foreign bank accounts and foreign financial assets. So, but yeah, that's the big thing new with LLCs. Income tax wise, there hasn't been much change, and I could probably talk for 4 or 5 hours on LLCs and how they get taxed and whatnot, because it's a Pandora's box depending upon facts and circumstances. So anyway. No,
LLC, Limited Liability Corporation, right?
Company. Limited liability companies. And they started out about 30 years ago in Wyoming, and then it became such a popular entity to form that it's expanded. Right. Every state has them now.
All right, we have Nancy waiting on the phone, and we're going to be do the best we can to get her question answered, despite our phone difficulties. So, Nancy, go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning. Walt, I have a question regarding to the storm that hit our area in July. And I don't know if somebody's already called this question in because I just started listening. But in our Target Range area, there was terrific damage. And for us personally, there was about $20,000 worth of repairs and so forth. Insurance wound up paying about $2,000. And we've been told that it was declared a federal disaster by our governor. Is there any way to claim the loss that we endured in our income taxes next year?
Okay. If that July wind event was, and actually it was our own form of a hurricane here, if it is a presidentially declared disaster area, then it qualifies for taking a casualty loss deduction. Casualty loss deductions are an itemized deduction, so depending upon your mix of other itemized deductions like mortgage interest and charitable donations and property taxes, then you'll get a benefit. But I think it was 3 weeks ago when I was here, the governor was on, and I asked him that question, and he said, well, before a disaster can be declared a federal presidentially declared disaster area, there has to be $2 million of loss to federal assets. In other words, say like if Fort Missoula was still a federal asset, if it received $2 million or more in damage, then it would become a federally declared disaster area. I don't know if it's reached that status. I haven't heard that. But if what you say is correct, then yeah, you get that benefit. But if it's not a presidentially declared disaster area, then you don't get that casualty loss deduction.
Okay, well, anything would help.
Oh, yeah, and maybe that's something I should follow up on is check to see if it is a federally declared disaster area. Now, obviously, Hurricane Helene is going to take care of the southeast. We know that's going to happen, and Lord knows what's going to happen with Milton. I have a client I just finished up a tax return for that lives in the Orlando area, and God safe speed for those folks.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your information, and I'll be watching to see if we meet the dollar amount, and even if we don't, if the president declared it as a federal disaster area, do you think that that's something that will be able to
and you know, you might check with one of the county commissioners if that's been declared yet. They should know.
Okay, I will do that.
You bet.
Thanks for your help.
Good luck, Nancy.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, I believe Dave is up next. Dave, good morning. You're on Talkback.
Hi, Dave.
Good morning. The numbers I've seen recently is that Kamala Harris's budget plans call for $3 trillion in deficit spending, and Donald Trump's plans call for $7 trillion in deficit spending. Do you have an opinion on that? And if you want to cut spending, what program would you cut?
Oh, okay. Well, like I've discussed before, if I had a magic wand at the federal government, I would eliminate the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, just to name a couple. That's right off the top. I'd get rid of those, and I would probably rearrange Department of Homeland Security, make the Secret Service part of the Treasury Department where it used to be, because it's not doing its job. But in terms of Trump and his tax, you have to weigh. He's going to deficit spend $7 trillion over 10 years, and Kamala's plan is $3 billion. I think you also need to take into account what revenue is Trump going to create with expanding tariffs. Now, I'm not a big fan of tariffs, but if it equals the playing field between our producers and producers in China, I'm all in favor of a level playing field when it comes to trade. So those are my thoughts on that. So if Trump raises money with tariffs to offset that deficit spending, so be it.
All right.
Tariffs are a tax on Americans because we buy the products. But
they're selective. It's not a general sales tax. It's selective. It's based upon the product being produced.
Right, but it is a tax.
Yeah, no doubt.
But your programs, go ahead, but your programs that you talked about cutting, I don't believe would balance the budget. You're going to have to go after a lot bigger program than that.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot the other element. I would, if I had a magic wand, I would reduce the federal budget by 10% a year for 3 years.
Thanks, Dave. Tell you what, we're up against a break. We're going to come right back. We have some app questions that are standing by, and we'll be right back after this 1 minute timeout. Okay, we are back on Talkback, the last segment of our time together with Walt Kero. Nick, where are we standing on phone calls and app questions?
We got a bunch of app questions. First, Cindy said, I have a small business LLC. I use a personal vehicle for business and use the mileage deduction on my taxes. For one client, I receive payment for mileage. How do I deal with this payment on my taxes?
The easiest way is to declare all your mileage as an expense, and if you get reimbursed, include that in your income. That's the way we report that, because that reimbursement is part of your income stream, and it fits the definition of what we call gross receipts. And boy, you want to be gross. You want to report everything.
Next one, Tom said, is there a circumstance where I would owe income tax from investment returns inside of my IRA? I remember vaguely something about UBTI earnings of MLPs like midstream companies being taxable.
Okay, that's easy for me because UBTI relates to charitable nonprofit organizations that get investment income from not so favored investments. And so for a personal return or your IRA, that UBTI doesn't apply. It just applies to nonprofits.
Okay, then last one, Mark said, what do you think about the Social Security payments made on wages being limited to a certain income level? Should we be asking everybody to pay for all of their income, not just limited amount of income?
Should we be? That's darned if you do and darned if you don't. And this question begs, every year the IRS and the federal government has an inflation index, and every year they adjust the amount of gross wages that are subject to Social Security tax or FICA or self-employment tax. And because that number has grown so big, back when I was paying the max, it was around 110, 20,000. Now it's up to 150, 60,000, and it's growing. The question says, well, if you get a W-2 for $1 billion, should you pay Social Security tax on the difference between, say, 170,000 and $1 billion W-2? I don't have a good answer to that, although my inclination is to say no. I think the present system is better. If you want to raise taxes, I think there's more efficient ways because what you're doing is asking to have high earners pay more. They're already paying high income tax, so you're going to ask them to pay more in Social Security tax. I'm not really in favor of that. Our government is way too big. It's Jabba the Hutt on steroids, and it needs to go on a weight plan.
We have Joe waiting with a question. Joe, good morning. We have about 3 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Joe.
Thank you. Hello. Good morning. And I had a couple of questions, so I'll start with the 5013C question, and then the other one is on the Chevron decision. But anyway, I've heard the ads by the Civil Liberties Union out of New York concerning the Supreme Court justices candidates in Montana. And I did talk to John a lot about what it means to be a 501(c) and, your tax-exempt status, not being involved in politics. So, and then you have these nonprofits that are actually involved in moving illegal immigrants around the country and shipping them in and funding it. And to me, these are some of the most important political questions of the day, immigration and abortion.
Yeah.
And I think the Civil Liberties Union really stretched it with that ad that they did.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard it or not, but...
No, I haven't heard it, but the issue is a 501c3 is a charitable organization, and it can only become that if it's involved with four things: charity, which is has you would think it is, religious, scientific, or educational. If you fit one of those four categories, you're okay. Some of these nonprofits that are moving illegals around the country, if they're 501c4, C6, C7, they are not charities that monies given to them are deductible. So I have a suspicion that that's where those organizations, especially big ones that are funded by George Soros, are doing that. And so the taxpayers aren't funding that directly, but the whole thing is it just makes you sick to see all that happening, especially when there's money to be had that should be going to hurricane victims.
Joe, we are out of time. Thank you so much for the call. We appreciate it. Okay, this is where we, first of all, I want to say thank you to all of our listeners and all the folks who use the KGVO app, and as we are dealing with our phone issues. So a quick some contact information so people can reach you.
Oh, yeah. Our website is KBCPAS.net. You can reach us there, and you can even send a question through there. We're downtown at 269 West Front. If you know where the D.A. Davidson office building is, we're the next building east of there. And our phone number is 406-549-2288. Love to help you.
All right. As always, Walt, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
For sharing all that wonderful advice. We appreciate it. And so it's time to turn our attention now. Nick, what's coming up on tomorrow's fabulous program, sir?
From 8 to 9 tomorrow, we'll have Rob Nadelson in studio. He's visiting Montana right now, so he'll be on, constitutional scholar. And then from 9 to 10, it'll be Corey Swanson. He is running for Chief Justice of the Montana State Supreme Court. So he'll be on from 9 to 10, and hopefully the phones will be a little clearer, but hey, at least we were able to take calls.
You know, and the experiment worked. It wasn't ideal, but at least it did work. And so that's kind of what makes a talk show a talk show. And again, Nick, thanks for all your hard work there. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock on Talkback.